After the Paulette affair, King Kauike'auli sought to safeguard the Hawaiian kingdom from foreign takeover. He devised a plan to protect the Aina and help his people maintain control over the land. Traditionally, Hawaiians shared a given area of land. Everyone had rights to the Aina, and everyone had their responsibility to care for a portion. Ultimately, all lands were subject to the king's authority and management. The king and the council of chiefs worked with trusted foreign advisors to consider a new land system. They decided that the Aina was to be divided among many individuals rather than being concentrated under the king. The land commission was formed to mahele, would divide the Aina among people who held rights to the land. This new set of laws was called the mahele. In this mahele, about 1/3 of the Aina became crown lands, which were owned by the reigning monarch. About 1/3 of the Aina became government lands. The other third or so of the Aina was retained by the ali'i. All Aina was to be shared with Ho'aina, the Aboriginal Hawaiian citizens who had lived on the land for generations. According to the mahele, land could be claimed by Ho'aina as privately owned parcels. These privately owned parcels could be sold to anyone, including foreigners. King Kauike'auli believed these changes would protect Hawaiian stewardship of the Aina. Treating the Aina as a commodity was a significant shift in government policy, with far-reaching consequences. The king knew the transition from sharing land to owning land would be difficult for Hawaiians. To help his people grow into these changes, Kauike'auli gave his people options. He allowed them to claim their rights to the Aina and receive private property at a time of their own choosing. There was no deadline. They could assume private ownership of their Aina whenever they wanted. If a family decided to wait to claim their land, they had other options. They could live on crown lands or government lands or on the lands of their regional ali'i, where they could continue to work the land and support themselves. Ultimately, about 5% of the land was either claimed or purchased by Ho'aina as private parcels. However, a majority of Ho'aina continued to share their land and resources. Traditional access and gathering rights remained intact under the mahele. This meant, for instance, that a landowner had to allow access to established trails and resources on his property. Freshwater streams, springs, and beaches were shared resources that no one could own. Shared rights and responsibilities to the Aina connected Hawaii's people to one another. Through these measures, King Kauike'auli sought to blend and balance traditional Hawaiian practices with land management that was more familiar to foreign powers. However, many foreigners did not respect this hybrid system. They often refused to honor the shared rights of Ho'aina. This was an issue that would continue for years to come.